everyone doing this afternoon? So happy to see you on the live today and so excited to talk about creating your vision starting from where you are right now. And I thought we'd do a little summary from last time. We talked about starting to create your vision, getting ready for it by celebrating you. That's such a super important part of it because it gets you in the right mindset to celebrate, to create a vision from the positive space that helps you create the amazing vision that you deserve. Hello, Christina. It's so good to see you here. So glad you made it. Um, so, so now that we've celebrated ourselves and we're ready to create our vision, I thought with one of the things I would start with is like an example of what you often see if you're looking for ways and you Google it or you even have somebody an expert who's given you stuff. A lot of times they'll give you like 10 areas. If you can see on the sheet, I know it's backwards. That you don't need to read it on here. I just want you to have the idea. As you can see, it has 10 areas of your life and it's 2 pages. So the second page is just all the rest of those and then how you put them in order. And the important thing that I wanted you to see too is how it has you rank them. From if you consider that area of your life a 10 or a 2 or a 3. And then if you look up at the top, it also shows you here the areas of your life that are the ones that are expanding more out, you're really happy with. And the ones that are pretty small are the ones you're not as happy with. And then you might want to pick several of those areas to work on. And that's a lot of what you'll see everywhere when that's the case. Hi, Victoria. It's so good to see you here as well. And so the thing about that is that if you take the areas that you say are not so happy with and you rank them and maybe they're a 2 or a 3 or even a 4, and now you want to start to create your vision of that area, you're starting from a place where you know what you're doing is you're telling yourself all the things you don't like about that area. And now you're trying to create a vision that is something you want and something, and you're creating from a space that's already been created as a negative space. So one thing I would invite you to do in that when you're in that space is think about all of the things that you do like in that space because you want to create from a positive space. If that's an area of your life that you really don't feel very good about, you may have to work on creating that from getting yourself in a positive space from some of your other areas that you really like. And then when you're feeling good, then work on creating that space. And it might take you more than one try because when we don't feel good, if we're not feeling good inside about it, that actually tells us that we're not believing in what we're putting down or what we're creating. And if we're not, you can only receive as big as you believe. And so the universe will knock itself out. God, the universe, when you are trusting and believing. And so one way to know where you are is to recognize how you feel when you're working on your different. And the other thing is, if you're not in a great space, if you're in a struggle about things, a lot of times what we end up doing in that, when we're in that space is we don't even try to create a vision because we feel like we have to be to a certain level before we can create a vision. But how do you get there? And so you can create a vision from any space you're in, and it doesn't have to be 10 areas. There was a time in my life. That's good, Christina. Man, I know what you mean. There was a time in my life when I was really struggling. When I financially, I had stepped out of my business to help my brother, and I was really struggling financially. And a big part of the reason I know now that it took me so long is because I got in a space of feeling overwhelmed, of feeling like a martyr, but also feeling like a failure. And I was beating myself up over it. And I was working really hard, but I wasn't believing in solutions. I was spending all my time in the problem. And because of that, I couldn't see solutions that were there. Was I loved that whole time? Could it have been a lot easier if my beliefs had been in a different space? I know for sure that's true because when I finally figured that out, that I needed to change my attitude and change my belief system, I was able to change it and where I was financially very quickly compared to the amount of time that I spent in that space. The beautiful thing for me about having that happen is I now understand that in every way. And I realize that when I'm not receiving, I'm not believing in it. And so it's a step back to get myself in that space of belief. And there's multiple different ways. Appreciation is a huge one, huge. And that's the biggest tool that I used at that point in time. Because when you start to appreciate, you start to feel love. When you start to feel love, you're letting that love in from God, the universe. And as you do that, you start to feel better. And when you start to feel better, you start to see solutions that you weren't seeing. And it begins to build on itself. Now you can create a vision in more than one space. Now, I mean, honestly, when I first started creating that vision, the biggest part of that vision was I'm not going to go bankrupt. I am absolutely determined not to go bankrupt. Not exactly positive, except that it was full of determination. Whereas I had just been wallowing in, you know, basically feeling like a loser and beating up on myself, miserable. And of course, that was coming to work with me. So when I first started changing that, it was this, you'd feel better. You'd feel really good. You get to work, and then there's, bill collectors calling, and then you're struggling again. But over time, you start to see some things getting better. You start getting better at getting yourself back in a better place during the day when you do the work every morning to get yourself in the best place possible. Reading positive books, getting yourself to a place. I couldn't meditate at first because I couldn't silence the brain. And that's where appreciation helped me it allowed me to create the space, silence, which allowed, more positive prayers because they need to come from a place of believing. And more silence where I could let solutions come in from God, the universe, and ideas that you get up from the chair and you're like, oh, what about this? So that's how you can start to create when you're in a really negative space, a really painful space, to start to let some light in. And then to create, I'll give you an example when I talk about evaluating a space that you don't feel as good about. So one of the areas of your life is your environment, which includes your home, your yard, that sort of thing. Well, I was, and this is it's hilarious when I come back and look at it, in the sense that I had been really overwhelmed in another area just through 2020 and all the things that occurred during that year. And I just ended up with feeling behind and disorganized in my house, and it was bothering me so much so that I was having somebody come spend some time and work with me on some projects, and they were actually going to stay here. And I said so much about, you know, apologizing in advance for the things that weren't done in my home that she was shocked when she walked in because it felt and looked much better to her than what she assumed from what I said. And isn't it so easy to do that to ourselves? And the thing is when I was in that space of seeing everything that wasn't done, seeing everything that wasn't organized or that I wanted to do, it felt very overwhelming to do it. And so and then by chance, I got a new kitchen appliance that I was really excited about. And then I found a place that I wanted to put it. And I rearranged my kitchen to make it work and make it happen. I got excited about cooking. And then all of a sudden, it was very easy to clean some things out, to reorganize, and then decide that I didn't really care for the mail when it ended up on the island. And realizing that if I wanted that to be true, I needed to create a system. And then I created that system in no time at all. And all of a sudden, I realized, oh my gosh, when we're creating from a place of excitement and joy, it's easy. And when we're creating from a place of feeling like it needs to or it has to or we failed in some aspect, it's really hard. And it's the same exact job, but it's the weight of how it feels one way versus the other that's so crazy. And so now, I am looking around and appreciating again every single thing that I've been able to accomplish in changing the things that I really wanted to change that make this space feel better to me. And I'm excited. I'm literally at times jumping up and down with excitement because I'm excited about organizing this area or fixing this area. And I'm making an effort to pay attention and not get overwhelmed by what needs, if I start to feel that way, go back and appreciate what I've already done and how it is now, and knowing as every day I do little things, one drawer here, one little thing here, how it's expanding and feels really good. And then knowing that we can apply that to every area of our life, which is makes it fun. You do the same thing with your vision. Make sure you celebrate you. Keep a running document. We talked about it a little bit last week. In the evening, document at least one or two things that you're really um, proud of yourself for doing, or celebrating that you got done, and appreciating what one or two things in the day, two or three, that you appreciate. Because if you make a habit of that, one, if you do it before bedtime, it affects your dreams. And if you have good dreams, that also affects where you are as you get up in the morning, and how you can create from your vision to your days. Part of our day, we want to create the best days we can. And if tell yourself at that night, and then in the morning, spend a minute or two really appreciating the good things and where you are, and the things you can think of to appreciate about yourself. Because this is how you'll start recognizing when you're talking mean to yourself. And that it's hard to create a vision that you can actually step into when subconsciously you're sabotaging yourself by how you're talking to yourself. And appreciation does a ton to change that. So, for those of you who have made it to today's live, do you have any questions? Like things that I forgot to cover or didn't in that area, like as you're creating your vision, that that you have to think about, that you think would help you as you create your vision for 2024. Also want to point out that if you're feeling like you're not in a great space, you don't have to create for the whole year. Start with creating a space for yourself, like with appreciation, and use that space to help you create the next part of your vision, and maybe do 2 weeks or a month. And then, next week, what we'll focus on how to come back and evaluate where you are, what you created. Is that working? Is it not? And then if it's not working, how you would evaluate it's not working, so that you could make some adjustments, so that you will reap a huge harvest this year of celebrating and doing and living so much more what you really want in life. Um, because you will receive as big as you believe. It's learning how to believe bigger for yourself. And one of the things I want to point out, you're meant to live a bigger life. We're all meant to bigger life. Our purpose is so much bigger than we allow it, because we tell ourselves we're not good enough, we're not worthy. And that is not what God or the universe is saying. It's not what they're saying. It's not what He's saying to you. It's not what He's saying for you. And we make it small, and we let others make it small, because we dream a little bit bigger dream, and then we take it to somebody and they say, oh, you can't do that. You know, even in the, I dreamed that I could step out and help my brother. And I had people say, no way, you're going to go bankrupt. And the only reason I had to wallow in that for 3 years is because I got lost in it, not because that's what God intended. Nope, not at all. If I would have stayed believing that I was worthy of receiving and stayed in that space, it could have gone a lot easier. Here's the thing though. Now I have tools that I get to use every day. Now I understand it in a way I didn't understand it before. Now I'm not creating by accident. I'm creating on purpose. And I know when I'm in my space and when I'm not. And you can have that too. And it's exactly why I created How to Build an Extraordinary Life at Any Age. It took me more than 10 years after I started this journey to really, really, really understand how we could do it, and where we shut off the love and the solutions by our lack of belief and trust in them, by our feelings of unworthiness, by the voice in our heads that tell us we're unworthy or are actually telling us negative things, or the voices that other people are telling us. And we can change that. We can absolutely change that, and we can control so much more and open up. And it's not like you control believing, and then what comes gets even bigger and gets even bigger, and it's so much fun. And we're supposed to have fun. And took me a long time to learn too. And when we're not having fun, we're definitely not in the space of believing as big as what we're meant to believe. Because if we did, we'd know that no matter where we are right this minute, it can be at any point in time we choose to believe more, it can be the jumping off pad for as big as you want to go. You start and you start here and then you let it expand as you prove to yourself, as you see what you're creating. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. So my question now is, does anybody else have any questions? If you can't think of them right now, feel free to go in and type in questions after you think about it or you rewatch it. And I will be happy to answer those questions during the week. We so want you to believe and know how worthy you are and that you are an important part of contributing and making this world a better place. Each and every one of you is. And we want you to be in that space and we want you to create so much more from such a place of joy and live in that space because that's how we change the world. And that's really what we want to do. So we'll be looking forward to you joining us again next week. We can't wait to see what questions you have during the week that we can answer and expand on. All of it I'll answer, but then love to hear ideas. What else have you done that worked? Have you found yourself in that space and you were able to get yourself have you found yourself in a negative space and created a positive space? Do you have any tips or tools that you would like to share with the group? Because we're all here because we know that we can live an extraordinary life and we really want to live an extraordinary life. And so I am super grateful for the time with every one of you. And I can't wait to see you again. I can't wait to see what questions you have. And I hope you have a magnificent rest of this fantastic Monday. Thank you.